Good morning and welcome to the Leadership and Insurance Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bond, and I'm very lucky today to be joined by Christie Downs, who is co-founder of Handdii. Christie, how are you?
Hi, Alex. Yes, fantastic here. Little chilly in Vegas, but I shouldn't complain. There are others in a much worse situation in other parts of the country.
Yeah. Where are you at the moment?
Henderson, Nevada.
Oh.
Yeah, despite my accent, yes.
Yeah, I did. I was thrown by that because I was like, I'm sure we were speaking to someone in Australia. And then, how long have you been there?
3 years. We launched Handdii over here 3 years ago, just before COVID.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Well, we'll dive into that. But before we dive into, too many of the questions, perhaps you'd be kind enough to introduce yourself and obviously the Handdii business for the people that are there that might not be aware.
Thanks, Alex. Yes, so my name's Christie, CEO, co-founder of Handdii. My co-founder is Catherine Wood, and Handdii connects insurance companies and their customers to local pre-vetted contractors to fast-track property claims. My background was in the construction industry, and my co-founder, Catherine, led motor and property claims for a large insurance carrier. So together we had this pain point that we just needed to jump out and solve.
Awesome. So you've already informed us, obviously, you're now based in the US and you launched in the US three years ago, but take us back to the beginning. So when you launched in 2019 in Australia, I believe.
Yes, we did initially. So that's where I'm from, as you can hear in my accent. And so is Catherine. And back then, Catherine had this problem with property claims where, there's this process that has multiple touch points and suppliers. And she thought that these small claims should be fast and easy. And yet they were starting to cost more money and complaints were going up. And so she came to me, I was a supplier of hers at the time. And I said, well, it's because as a big construction company, I actually prefer a $100,000 claim. You need to get those small claims to local contractors and you need to fast track it to them. And so, technology could do that. And so we launched in Australia initially, and very quickly we were approached by the Hartford InsurTech Hub, an accelerator over here in the US. And the problem's the same across the world. So we had some key players over here that were keen to get us to launch in the US. And so now we're operating in both countries. Excited to share more. Yeah.
Wow, exciting. It's quite nice to be approached to join one of those things. It's quite often you're applying. Did that just come out of the blue?
Well, I think we knew a friend of a friend who said, you need to apply to this thing. So you're right. We definitely did apply. But yes, it was a lovely welcome into the market over here. That's for sure. Actually, funny story. That's where these vests happen. So when we went to this accelerator, they said, "Oh, you need to wear matching t-shirts so that we know who's in which team." And we're like, "We don't want to wear that standard black t-shirt that all the startups wear. You see them walking around Silicon Valley, whatever." And so Catherine was like, "I know, we should wear like workwear vests because we're representing the contractors, And so that made sense. And so we turned up in our high-vis vests, and then that's it. Now, if we turn up somewhere we don't have them, they're like, "Who are you?" Like,
yeah, I was going to say for people not watching and only listening, that Christie's in full high-vis wear, and I would have been disappointed if you had turned up without it. I was going to mention it because I think we met very briefly. I know you had more of a conversation with the rest of the team, but we met very briefly in Vegas at ITC, and yeah, full high-vis at all times. Every time I saw you, I think.
Yeah, contractors we're representing. Correct. They're at the table. They're here at the conversation. So
I like that though, because it is true. I mean, it is useful. I've kind of fought really hard against branded wear just because the quality of it tends to be quite poor. So I have tasked Sophie with trying to find us some stuff for our next event we go to, but it is the ubiquitous black t-shirt with your logo on it, and it's not that much fun, but yeah, you bring quite a lot of fun to the party. In fact, in Vegas, you had we were showing you beforehand. You were giving away ducks, or what was that about?
We had a massive inflatable duck, and we had all these little ducks there. And so once again, we were having this conversation, and I said to Catherine, like, that ITC is just massive. Like, And as a growing company like ours, like we haven't got a massive stand that, you know, with bells and whistles, like those things can cost 50 grand. And so, and I said to her that what do we do to stand out? Like, how do we be memorable? And one of our friends is obsessed with those rubber ducks. So we bought him this massive inflatable one. And so we're like, let's take the rubber duck and let's take, you know, because we're in property claims and, you know, water mitigation. It's like, keep your head above the water. We just made up something that kind of connected with our property claims, right? And then everyone loves a duck. So now you guys have got one over there in the UK.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
ducks
yeah.
have made it all around the world.
Yeah, you should do something on your socials about what's the furthest one of your ducks traveled. So yeah,
Oh,
because
that's a good idea.
because we're definitely in. Yeah, as I say, it's become a bit of a company mascot for us because yeah, it was a nice thing. You know, we're at ITC, we went as a team and we came back and yeah, we told you we've called it Finley Vega, Finley for FinPro and Vega for Vegas. There was a small agreement. If anyone had, none of us have got children. If anyone has a child, they've got to call it Finley Vega. But we decided a duck was fairer.
I love that.
Yeah. So take us back to the problem. So you almost like you had the solution, but you were you aware of the problem, or was it just, you know, so you were a supplier, but it
Mm.
just it was a pain point to you? Was it painful from a supplier perspective as well, just working with insurance companies?
Um, so I guess, yeah, so we really felt that specific pain point. And like I said, it was really both on the carrier side and on the contractor side. So as a construction company, like I said, I prefer a claim that's $100,000 because I can make a good margin on that. But the insurance company wouldn't they'd just give us one big claim and a whole host of these small claims. And on a $5,000 claim, I can't make much money. So it takes just as much admin, just because we've got all these overheads that we're carrying as a big company. And so we had to do them, but we almost might run at a loss with those small claims. But we do it because we wanted the $100,000 claim. But then if you think about it, which customers are we going to focus on? We're going to put our love and energy over here on this $100,000 claim. And all of those $5,000 customers, they deserve just as much attention. And so I think it's all about that margin on margin in the ecosystem, if you like. And so that's what I was saying to Catherine at the time is, like, you need to strip that back and be able to get these claims straight to a local contractor. They've got 3 to 30 people in their team. They love a $5,000 job. That's what they do every day. They're getting out there and they're just really passionate about customer service. The problem for the insurance carrier is they can't deal with 12,000 small contracting companies around the nation. They can only deal with a handful of big suppliers. And so that's why, you know, technology, of course, can enable that. So we created Handdii, which is a 3-sided platform. So, you know, the homeowner's got a digital experience that takes them right through to, you know, finding their contractor, getting their estimate, and then right through the repair journey, if you like, rather than just getting a check and see you later, have to fix your property. And then, you know, the insurance company can integrate with their claim system, and then the contractor also has that transparency and everyone can communicate together. So yeah, technology can do that. So that's why we, you know, set about creating Handdii, and we really focus on those claims that are under 25,000. So it's really, it's a large volume of the claims, but it's sometimes the stuff that some of the players out there aren't keen on.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a big problem, isn't it? Like the lower level claims that cause the biggest headaches, seemingly, for insurers.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the solutions have been as quick as to say anything below a certain amount, just pay it, which obviously opens you up to, you know, sort of fraud, but maybe arguably a tolerable level of it, but that's not really a solution.
Yeah.
Through to, you know, going through this painful process, because it really resonated with me. I was thinking about this when my parents had some water damage in their homes, quite a small claim. To get that contractor to them, it was months. So they're part of their house, this small claim, it's not being paid. It was not even being paid. It wasn't being repaired because they had no control of the process. So, you know, they could have gone onto Handdii, selected someone, got some quotes, pushed it through. yeah, it's such an obvious solution, and, you know that they're in the UK, so it's yeah. When are you coming to the UK so you can sort my parents' house out? That'd be great.
You're absolutely right. And that's a real pain for just homeowners in general, trying to get a good quality contractor. And when you think about it, you know, as a homeowner, you've only got that $2,000 job to offer that contractor, and you're not going to give them repetitious work. That's it. And if you're going to make them bid against other contractors, suddenly the priority of your job just, you know, is falling away. Whereas, you know, part of the joy for contractors working with Handdii is that we can provide them with regular work, and also we can guarantee that cash flow. So one of the really strong motivators for the contractors joining our platform is that it's their payment terms are based on their customer service rating. So if they get 5 stars, they get paid 7 days, 4 stars, 14, 3 stars, 21. And cash is king for these small companies, you know, and they're so passionate about their Google star rating and their Handdii star rating, and, you know, it means everything to their brand. So then, you know, they want to get paid 7 days. So we get contractors saying, you know, just not believing it. Oh, you're not going to do that. Like, you know, like, well, you know, speak to, you know, any of our existing contractors, and you'll know that you'll be committed to delivering on that. So that's part of what's helped us build a really quality, good network.
That's such a clever model. I love that. Yeah, no, I didn't
Very
know that.
simple.
Yeah, it's so simple, but what a thing. Yeah, what a thing. Because that's, yeah, I can imagine it's a completely cash flow driven business, and the speed of and the behaviors that then therefore encourages is yeah, is obvious. So no, what a simple solution. But talk to me about funding, because are you seed round backed at the moment? I know you raised some money, but
Yes,
when did
we
that?
absolutely are. So
Yeah,
we obviously we were an Australian business, and we raised money back home. And then we obtained venture capital investment over here in the US. So
yeah,
our major investor is Brick and Mortar, who have backed a number of winners in construction tech. So we're very pleased to have them on board. We have 94 and Greenlight Re in the prop tech and insurer tech space. We are invested with FJ Labs, so who are marketplace, and then Gangels, who invest in LGBTQI founders, and then Scale Investors back in Australia, who invest in female founders. And of course, a bunch of angels who have been amazing for us since the start. So yeah, we sort of see our investor group as part of who we're building as our team. So, you know, I think it's really important that they're aligned with, you know, we need them to have the deep expertise, the strong network, but we need them to be our cheerleaders, you know, which they really are, and, you know, really back us on our vision and driving that way. So very, very pleased.
it's a great panel, because you've got investors there that represent like culture and values of the business, and then like the insurance side of the business, bricks and mortar property side of the business. So you've almost got like a panel of people that are interested from very different perspectives. Does that ever give you any? I know once you invest, they're not driving the business, but they're
Yeah.
obviously you have different. Is there a sort of challenge from feeding back investor relationship perspective, because they probably want arguably slightly different things for the business? Is that ever kind of an issue?
Interesting you say that. Not now. So we've been through that early. So we, you know, when we were getting early funding, we had a couple of folks that were had a different way of thinking how we should advance and grow the business. I think, look, the insurance industry and building a company in the insurance industry is not a small feat. One needs to have a lot of drive and a long vision, and know that you're going to get there. So determination and patience is part of that. So we have been able to sort of build and structure both our investor group and our board to get us to where we need to be for the next evolution of our growth.
Yeah, yeah, it's important to get the right investors. We've had so many conversations about that, particularly in today's environment as well.
Yeah.
When did the most recent round of funding come on board?
So that was October just gone. So we raised 2.5 million. So that will see us a good 18 months. And we've got a couple of key milestones that we want to tick off in the lead up to our Series A. So yeah, we're in a good place. I'm glad that we were able to secure that in this market.
Yeah, great news. I wanted to ask you about your kind of experience prior to Handdii, because you're somewhat of a serial entrepreneur, because you owned it wasn't just a construction company you worked for, it was your company, wasn't it? The construction company that you led, or you led it, I think, believe.
Thanks, Alex. I led the sales side of it, and yes, I was an owner of the company. So when I first started, we had 30 staff. We were in Victoria, just a state in Australia, with a revenue of 12 million. And it was my job to grow it along with the CEO. And we grew that company to 360 million in revenue and 300 staff. It's now listed in Australia. So it's the largest managed repair insurance services company in Australia. So that really, I guess I've been through those stages of growth of a company, and it was my job to set up one of the head offices, so moved there and building relationships. But really part of what that was about was understanding what insurance companies were promising. So what was happening originally when I first got there is, as a supplier, we were getting claims and we didn't necessarily know which insurance company it was from. And we were just going out to properties and turning up and doing the work. But, one promise from an insurance company is completely different to another. Like, you can pay for a cheap premium and you can pay, a lot of money. And so as the service provider, I was like, we should know what we're delivering on here, because I've got a bit of a sales background. I'm like, so reached out to the insurance companies and said, hey, did you know we're working for you? And what are you promising your customers? Because our contractors are in your customers' homes and delivering on that, And so I think really, like, opening up transparency in the supply chain, I really saw that was important right from the start, because I think historically, the insurance industry hasn't recognized the contractors as part of the industry,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. What do you think that transparency does for pricing? I mean, there's an obvious kind of conclusion that I might draw, but are you seeing an impact on pricing from the kind of marketplace and the transparency of information?
Yeah, so I think that the impact on pricing can be around efficiencies. So, there's a number of factors that are at play in the market at the moment, right? So your financial markets are obviously creating pressures on the insurance company, but then you've got to think about the construction market too, right? So there's labor shortages, there's material prices that are going up, and what transparency can do is open all of that up so that the insurance companies can have a true understanding of, what are those real costs, and then how can we streamline the process to then gain some more efficiencies while all these pressures are happening. So it's it's quite a complex, I guess. We could have a whole podcast on that, Alex.
Let's go for it. Because I'm really intrigued by marketplaces. I'm really intrigued by empowering small businesses in to really compete with bigger businesses, and sometimes that's just competing for this relationship. So your idea opens up small contractors to these large insurers that may never have engaged before, and that's crucial cash flow to a business like that. I can almost think about and reflect on my industry, in that a lot of these very large recruitment companies do lots of business with very large insurers, but actually, are they getting the best? Is that the best kind of service for those partners? Now, for a long time, that's not been the case, but the centralization of making that clear and transparent as a process has always been the challenge. So I'm a big believer in marketplaces. What I was wondering, what other opportunities do you have? Other opportunities in mind? Are you responsible, for example, making sure that these people are insured, ironically, and compliant? Is that part of the process, or is that something that's on the contractors to resolve independently?
So what else are we involved in? So I guess there's the side of the contractors where we need to ensure that the contractors, when we're vetting them and onboarding them, we need to be doing their background checks. We obtain their licenses. We're nominated on their certificate of insurance. We're meeting the owners. They're signing terms and conditions, code of conduct. We need them to be, buckle tight and doing a great job. So we do that sort of verification. But if you think about, our contractors are there in somebody's home, or they're available to an insurance company's customers. Insurance carriers are starting to talk to us about preventative repairs or maintenance, or obviously water shut off to valves and devices. And if you're there in a customer's home, could you install this while you're there? Or could we create a subscription product where we can do a couple of preventative maintenance activities per year? So I think that the industry is looking beyond the claim and going, okay, what more can we do? The trouble, of course, is that there's costs associated. Like, it costs money to get a contractor out to a property and install something. And then the homeowner isn't so excited about preventing a claim, So I think, it's a challenge for the industry, but there is definitely opportunity there. And yes, of course, we're working with a number of our insurance carrier clients on some of those initiatives.
Yeah, because how does it work so they're not, the contractors aren't covered by, for example, your insurance. They're acting independently on their own. You just have to clarify that they've got the appropriate insurance to be operating as they are.
That's right. And then we need to get really good insurance.
Of course.
But coming from an insurance background, you can imagine we got that sorted out very early.
Yeah. I was just wondering if there's an opportunity for you to embed insurance in your process, and your contractors buy insurance via yourselves, because you've got these relationships.
Yes, you're not the first person to think of that. We've had a number of carriers give us a little nudge. Yes, and that's certainly something. Look, there are other, I guess, revenue opportunities that we could offer our contractors over the long term, as we just want to make sure it's all about engagement. So, we're very passionate about being a contractor friendly program. So we want, the industry traditionally has been quite adversarial and there's been little trust between the homeowner and the insurer, between the contractor and the insurer. So between all three parties, it's, hasn't been harmonious. Let's just say that, right? And so as Handdii, we're like, well, the contractor is an important part of this story. And if we can all get on the same page to, the outcome is we all want a great claim. Mind you, a happy claim, is an oxymoron a little bit. But, so we think as Handdii, if we can empower the contractors to be their best, because they want to be on the tools and doing a good job for the customer. And so, that harmonious relationship means all folks can get a better outcome.
Yeah, the best practice thing, because sometimes you don't know. I'm really conscious of this in my world. You don't know what you don't know, right? I've worked for a couple of really good recruitment companies and a really good search firm, so I've got some best practices from there. But I'm also really conscious of what I don't know. You don't always know what your competitors are doing. You don't know what good looks like from, best practice from other small contractors. So even kind of that information and engagement to share those things and those learnings, I think is really, really important for people.
Yeah. Alex, when you say that and you're talking about your recruitment background, I go straight to, building your team out. Because in the insurance industry, there's a real strong gravitation to just hire people that have been in the insurance industry forever. And you need that because the credibility, the knowledge, the understanding. But back to, you don't know what you don't know. We think it's also important to find folks that are strong in character and vision and subject matter expertise, but they may be new to the insurance industry. And so what they then offer is like that different perspective, or, over in this, we've come up with this, and, and sometimes it's a bit jarring, but it's like, okay, no, tell us more about that. The insurance industry could deal with a bit of a fresh perspective. So love that. And I think it takes us further, right? Even if it's sometimes not what we don't want to hear.
Yeah, I always resonates with me that when I talk about those stories, that me and my friend were he's a sales guy. He used to work in recruitment, but he's a sales guy now. And I was talking shop with him. I was around his house, and we were just having a drink, and we're talking. And I was kind of going over this problem, sort of business development issue and strategy. And his wife happened to be there, and she's a surveyor. She has nothing to do with sales or the recruitment industry at all. And then she just sort of she's clearly been listening, but sort of in the background, she was doing something else. And then she just turned around and, have you thought about this? And we both just looked at each other. We're like, no, never. Brilliant. That's the answer. You know, when you're just thinking, it's that outside perspective. And
Yeah.
sometimes the advantage is to someone that has no correlation, because they ask sometimes it's the obvious question in the room, sometimes it's the kind of like just that different perspective. So yeah, I think you're so right. I mean, working in recruitment, we're constantly trying to push the boundaries of what people do want to bring in. And, you know, insurance is quite resistant. Yeah, we talk about leadership roles, and you know, someone says, "Oh, we could look outside the insurance industry," and
Ooh.
you have to gauge that could, and it's like, do you mean could as in you want us to look there, or you're going, you
Yeah.
could, we're not going to employ anyone, but you could. So, or they'll say something like, they could maybe credit cards, or it's like something like really aligned. But yeah, we need to be braver, I think, as a kind of industry, certainly. So, you know, talk to me about kind of moving from, well, I suppose there's two things, but you took the business from Australia to the US. Has there been any unique challenges that has come in that journey that have either surprised you or kind of led you to evolve the offering in the US, or vice versa?
So Alex, the historical, I guess, difference between the Australian market and the US market. So the Australian market is much more like the UK, where when you sign your premium, the insurance company says, we will repair your property. So the insurance company has suppliers, and you don't actually have a choice. They're going to make sure that your property is repaired. And so it's really a fulfillment market. You're not going to get given a check, you just get looked after. Whereas in the US, historically, the traditional model has more been like you're going to have a field adjuster come out, you're going to get multiple estimates, and then you're going to get paid a check. And then see you later, you go and project manage your property, and it's all about customer choice. And so that's quite different. And look, there are pros and cons of both, but the model that we were bringing to the US is more that we will look after you, you know, so we do the vetting and onboarding and make sure that you get a quality contractor. But in the US market, because that's been the traditional way, it kind of stops the process. And so we have a very straight through model that really, you know, fast tracks all of those speed humps. But customers everyone's trying to stop it along the way and, you know, go, I want to get my check, or argue over the number, and you know, all that sort of thing. So that's been a bit of I guess a bit of a culture shock for us, really. But we've worked on that with our insurance carrier partners, and they're keen to get to straight through claims. Right, everyone knows the benefit of, you know, that sort of efficiency and speed and taking care. And there are more and more consumers that are just like, you know, I just want to be looked after here. Like, I'm busy with my job, get my home fixed, you know, just do a good job. So we knew that the industry was going that way over here. And that's what we discovered at the initial accelerator we were a part of. They're like, the industry is moving towards managed repair. And in fact, we're direct repair, where our contractors actually do that inspection and estimate. And then there's a desk adjuster that's making that claims decision. So that was a challenge. I think one of the things that's exciting and that a lot to do right at the moment is the world of integrations. So everybody's been using a million systems, or they still are, and they're trying to work out how to not have their adjusters do the swivel chair. And so, you know, we have a web-based application, which is awesome, because that means that integration API, you know, happens. And so our dev team, our software engineering team, have a solid roadmap of integrations with estimating systems, claim systems, other I guess, providers in the industry this year. So that's a hot topic, if you like.
Yeah, that's interesting. Such a cultural shift. I was thinking about that. That speaks to kind of America's culture of like individualism and sort of self, whereas, but I imagine that, are you seeing like hotspots? Because I would imagine this does better in places where, like, I can imagine this taking off more in California than Central America, right? The sort of, you know, like San Francisco, no one's bothered about redoing their own work and taking the check and saying, because I'd imagine there's an incentive to go, right, if I get a check, then it's up to me, and maybe I can make a bit of margin myself as the homeowner, get it fixed for less and take some money on top. Whereas
Yes.
actually, I just, I thought I was that guy. I used to sort of try and do everything myself, and now I've just bought a new flat. It needs lots of work.
You've
I
learned.
want, I said to this contractor, I went, I want to give you the keys. I'm going to go on holiday. And I want it to be done when I come back, and I don't care what happens in the middle.
That's absolutely right. And Alex, yes, there is cultural differences between different states.
Yes.
So in the US, look, we launched in Texas initially. So right in the deep end, like bring it on. And then we expanded across Texas, and then we went to California too. So, we really jumped in the deep end. And awesome, I guess, initiation into the insurance market here in the US. But sort of maybe more that sort of, I think it's more of a personality type. So like you said, that I'm going to be the handyman around the house, or the do-it-yourself, attitude, that is definitely in the market. But then there's also the folks that are like, I've given it a go before, and now please just take care of me. This is too much of a headache,
That's an interesting point about COVID, because the last property I flipped a property with my partner at the time, and during COVID, because I was there, so it was like, well, yeah, I won't plasterboard my ceiling, but I wouldn't normally. I happened to be at home all the time, so I've got nothing else to do. I might as well plasterboard a ceiling,
That's right. Well, it's funny, like, there were quite a number of claims because people were, all the wear and tear in people's homes, because they're there all the time, right? So it really did, affect that claim volume, the day-to-day claims.
Yeah, what impact did it have to see you moved to the US to open in the US as COVID happened? It feels like we haven't talked about COVID enough on this podcast for a while. So what impact did that have? Was it similar to other places? Because in the UK, construction was allowed to continue, but I don't know how far the chain that went down. So was that challenging?
Well, Alex, good question. So from a construction point of view, insurance claims are considered emergency services, if you like. So they're urgent repair. So we had all of the complexity of the PPE, all the safety, like wearing masks and making sure that people were happy to come into homes. And then, we'd have a lot of claims delayed, or, if contractors got COVID, or if homeowners got COVID, or, so that was a dance for sure. And it meant that we needed to have a full contractor network so that folks could come in and go out. If, one team was affected, then we needed to be able to bring in the, people off the bench. So there was that kind of thing. But for us as a company, and for, I guess, us as founders, so Catherine and I being from Australia, I don't know if you remember what it was like with Australia just locked down. So, the airplanes, there were none. So when it first happened, Catherine flew back to Australia and I stayed in Austin, Texas. Nice place to be. But that was it. I wasn't going anywhere. So we were actually in the US, unable to fly back to visit family and friends for a good 2 years. So we started out in Texas, and then when it really locked down, I needed to be at the beach, so I went to Marina Del Rey. So we were at Marina Del Rey doing the paddleboard thing on our weekends when all the shops were closed and nothing was, available to anyone.
Yeah, I did the head to the coast. It wasn't quite as exotic as Marina Del Rey, but I moved to Brighton during the
Nice.
Yeah, I was like, I need to be near some outside space, but I digress. I'm really conscious of time, so I don't want to stretch it too long. But I'm really intrigued. You know, it's such an interesting journey. It's such an obvious pain point. I always say on this podcast, it's like for me, as soon as someone says something that's, you know, it's it's always that seemingly a simple solution, but I used to work in claims, which I was saying, I was like, I know what a mess that side of the business is. So it's such a kind of obvious solution. But yeah, it's fascinating. So, you know, what's next for Handdii? Is there more geographic growth? Is there sort of different services? Yeah, where are you going in 2023?
Thanks, Alex. So, yeah, so if you think about Handdii, there's sort of two parts to our Nirvana, if you like. So we've got our technology, and then we've got our contractor network. So when you think about our technology, that's when I was talking about the integrations that we have coming up, and lots of other exciting functionality. But on the contractor side, yes. So we are in 20 states here in the US, and we've knocked off some big ones, like I said, California, Texas, we're in Florida, we're in New England, we're in Ohio, Wisconsin. So we're really looking to be national by the end of 2023. And we're very selective about hiring our contractors into our network. So it can take a bit of work, but that's okay. We're excited about that. We've got a great team. And then I would say, look, we're building our relationships with both our current insurance companies and new ones. We've got a nice long list of folks that are keen to work with us, which we're excited about in this next, you know, chapter, if you like. And financially, we're working towards cash flow positive. So, you know, it's in this market, it's good to be making a profit and have control of your destiny. So, you know, I think that's a smart goal, and we're on our way.
Awesome. Brilliant. Lovely to hear. Thank you, Christie. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. Thank you for also turning up in your high vis, because I wouldn't have been the same without it.
So good. Oh, thanks, Alex. That was fun.
No, thank you. And yeah, I'll speak to you very soon. And yeah, thanks once again for being a guest.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye.